1973. Mountain View, Arkansas, April 20th, 1973, in the courthouse.
And my grandmother died there, and my dad was 15 years old then. Well, then they moved to Webster County after she passed away, and he bought a little farm there where his great-granddaughter lives on it today. And then Dad later bought a farm about a mile and a half from there. And that's where we lived the rest of the time till I was married, until Dad and Mother died.
So what was your maiden name?
Shirts.
Shirts.
And then I'll tell you about how Jim and I got acquainted.
That's right.
I was going to school at Ozarks, and came March, and the teacher's examination always was held in March. And I took the teacher's examination. Well, he had come up from Slaver, he and 2 or 3 others, to take the examination, you know. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. The reason that we went to Sparta, got on the train, went to Sparta to take this examination because of a smallpox epidemic. And the others were afraid to come, you see, so we moved it over there. Well, he came there too. Well, we all stayed at a big hotel over there in Sparta. We called it a big one. And so my husband got a piece of paper and pencil, and they began at the other end and went all around getting their names and addresses in order to get mine. And nobody caught on what he was up to, don't you see? And then after he went home, why, he wrote to me. And that was the beginning of it. It went on for about 4 years before we were married. But that's where we met. And then 2 or 3, several years, several times, they would have teachers' meetings, you know, and he would always be there too.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, I just think, now let's see, you know, you mentioned one play part, but you used to, now, church was really kind of the center, wasn't it? Because
White Oak was the name.
Yeah, but I mean, you had rather than just going to church services, it was a church and a school together? Oh, no, church and the school building,
the buildings were close together.
And those were your social centers too.
The cemetery is there today, and the church is there. The same church building, but the school's gone. It was the school district was divided right after I left there. And then it's consolidated now with Rogersville. But
do you remember some of the games?
Games?
Used to play. Ooh, is that hail?
Oh, I hope not.
No, that's Erma coming.
Well,
wait a minute, here, Will. Yeah, go ahead.
We played, that old black man, you know.
No, never. I don't know how did you play that?
Well,
well.
And stink base. You played that?
No, I've never heard of stink base. What was that?
That's good. And baseball.
Yeah.
And jump the rope.
Yeah.
And then we had a little timber close to the school, and a lot of grapevines in it.
Yeah.
Well, we used to get out there and we'd swing in them grapevines and eat wild grapes, you know,
Oh, yeah.
just have a picnic. And there was this schoolhouse and church were on land that an old doctor, Dr. Dalzell, you may have heard of Dr. Dalzell, he used to be in Springfield.
Yeah, Dr. Dalzell, sure.
It was his father, and he owned a big farm there, and he donated this land for the school and church and cemetery.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one funny thing that happened. I had an uncle by marriage that was teaching, and then they had these little handbells, brass bell, you know. Well, there was a hill sloped down towards this old doctor's house on the road. And when it come a rain and snow or something, why, that hill would get slick. And we could take sleds, you know, and coast down that hill, and we could skate, you know. And
Sit down.
so this particular time, we overstayed our time. We didn't know exactly what time it was. Didn't have a watch then, you know. And pretty soon we heard this teacher coming with the bell. Ring, 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 you know. Well, he had to pass this church house. And there was a big straw pile there back of that church house. Well, this was kind of downhill. Well, we all crawled under the wire fence. And we ran in behind that straw pile. And here he come past us, you know, going on ringing the bell. And then when he went on, while we run behind the church house and got on into the schoolyard and in the schoolhouse. And when he came in, we were all sitting up there with our books opened, you know, just studying for dear life. Well, he looked so funny, we just couldn't keep from laughing. But he never said a word. And he never did say a word to us about that. But that was the funniest thing. And, you know, when I went to teaching school, he gave me this bell.
Wow.
And Erma, no, you
Erma
gave
had it till
I gave it to Erma, and she gave
I
it.
gave Marilyn had such a fit because he had used it too.
Yeah. I liked it back. I wish she just was telling me the games they played. One was stink base, and she won't tell me.
Yeah, I played that.
I never heard of stink base.
I played it.
I'll tell
You
you.
heard? Have you heard of Finest Gold, the mayor of next over here? He's always.
Well, yeah, here.
He's always in something. Well, he used to couldn't talk play. He'd say Missy Mable, you know, and we was all out playing stink base, you know. And every time on Finest it get laughed on, you know.
He's just little, you know. And
Yeah.
And he'd come up there and he'd say, Missy Mable, what is Steve asking you to do?
Make him take me off the stink base, you know. He wasn't any help to him, and they wouldn't take him
Well,
off.
how do you play stink base? I didn't know.
Well,
It's kind of like tag.
You had a base on place out,
Yeah.
and they chose up, you know, and had two sides. Well, that side, if they caught anybody, well, they had to go on the stink base. Well, then this side would try to get them, you know, and they'd back and forth
Back and
like
forth.
that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so he'd get tired of staying on the stink base.
Nobody
Nobody wanted to
Nobody
get him
to
off.
get him off.
No, and he'd say, Mickey Mabel, make him take me off and I'll get around some until I said, we'll take him off, he's tired, he's standing. He hasn't forgot it, I'll bet you.
Oh, I bet not. Let's see, and let's see, when did you quit teaching and went to work in Galena?
Well, I taught 1 year down here at Taylor, south of the Clever, and then I never taught anymore till we moved to Brown Springs. We had a store there, 6 years. Well, I taught 2 years there, and then I never taught anymore. Now, when I was at Galena, I substituted several times for teachers when they'd go on a trip
Yeah.
or something, you know. And that was
Well, you
all
worked
the
in the
teaching.
office at Galena, didn't you? I mean,
Oh,
wasn't you?
yes.
Clerk's office, was it?
I was
Collector,
deputy county clerk for, I think about 13 years.
When was this, in the 30s or 20s?
In 1926, we
Yeah.
first went down there, in
Yeah.
1927 when I begun work. And then I worked in the collector's office 3 years, and in the circuit clerk's office a year. And then when some of them would be gone, a lot of times they'd want me to stay and hold their office, you know.
Yeah.
I learned how to operate nearly every one of them.
Well, now, when you first started teaching school, how long was school? Was it 9 months like it is today?
No, the first school I taught was just 5 months, and then 8 months.
Yeah.
And
Did you had grades, or was it one room? You mean you had all?
I had all.
How high did they go?
8th grade.
And then they had a big seat right up in front of the room, and when they'd have their classes, each class would come up and sit down in this long seat.
Recitation seat.
you
Oh,
see.
and you take care of each class at a
And
time?
then when they
Yeah.
get through, well, then the other would go back. And then when the county superintendent would visit about once every, 3 months,
Something.
boy, everybody, he'd sit in on each class to see how they were teaching
Yeah.
like he thought they ought to teach.
Well, did you always hear about having trouble with some rowdies, you know? Did you have
I
trouble?
never did.
Mom didn't, but my brother went to one that, well, I did too, this Annie Gray, they call her, and she would make you turn around and stick your nose in the ring in the chalk,
Up in
the
the
whiteboard, and then stand with your hands as far as you could reach, and then hunt down under the backboard.
Under the
Yeah.
tree.
And now that or Lurie Maples was more at that though than any of them. And Lurie is the one that my cousin Wade Kim down here by Brown Springs, and she was going to punish him that way, and there was a window at the end of the schoolhouse, he just shot out of that window and landed it on his horse, and that he never came back. And he owns the schoolhouse now that he
Lives
jumped
there.
out of the window.
Well.
Built a
The
new
barn,
home like that.
he boxed that
Well.
barn, or schoolhouse, and made a nice barn out of it, and built a lovely brick home there, and uses the well that we used,
Well, now, let's see, of course, what church did you go to?
Methodist.
Yeah, what was the name of it? Was it
White Oak.
White? Yeah, you mentioned that a while ago. White.
And I belonged to that till Mount Carmel
Yeah.
broke up down here, and they built this new church, and I joined in that in 1912.
Well, now, did you ever have any trouble with people trying to break up church meetings? I hear a lot about that.
No, never did.
Well, now, when we lived in Brown Springs, there was some rowdy boys, don't you remember, that kind of caused trouble outside?
They never done anything. I mean,
No,
they
but-
stole something.
Yeah.
Well,
lap
they steal
robes.
lap robes, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'd come up drunk
Yeah.
and wait till it's over, but they never did break the
They
bed.
never broke up a meeting.
Well, now, you had revivals, didn't you? So
Yes.
Did you have circuit preach? You probably had a regular preacher, didn't you? Or did you
We
have
had
a
a
circuit?
regular preacher, and then we had what they called a presiding elder,
Yeah.
and he was overseeing several churches, don't you see, a district they call it.
But that really was about all you did. Did you? Well, of course, coming to Springfield
Yeah.
took some time, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, was that an
Well,
all-day
it took-
trip? How long did it take you to come?
Well, if we drove up there with a horse and buggy,
Yeah.
you know, we'd have to get up and start real early, and then start home or be after dark getting home.
Yeah.
Did
And,
you take your dinner with you, or did you eat dinner up there?
well, I think that we ate up there most of the time. We may have. Now, I was going to tell you one time when I was teaching over there, south of Rogersville, I boarded with a family by the name of Parton. And they had a dairy, but they didn't sell milk then. They churned that butter. They had one of these big barrel churns. And she'd skim that milk, and he turned that big churn. And she had a lot of little stone crocks that would hold a couple of pounds maybe of butter. And she'd sometimes a pound. She had regular customers in Springfield. And she'd mold that butter, and then we didn't have wax paper or paper napkins or anything like that. And she'd take nice white cloth and tear little squares, you know, and wet it and smooth it down over them jars to keep
Yeah.
the dust and
Yeah.
things off the butter.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have everything loaded and ready for them early the next morning, about 4 o'clock. They'd start out, they had what we called a hack.
Yeah.
It was a carriage without a top. And they'd have that butter and milk and buttermilk and eggs in there. And they'd make that trip to Springfield every Saturday of the world. And
Where would they go? Where would they take it when they got to Springfield? House
well,
to house?
they had customers.
They had regular customers.
Uh-huh.
Was there a market downtown that you used when you came to town?
Yeah.
You came to the square, didn't you?
Uh-huh. And there was a, what do you call it, where they left their teams, wagon yard.
Yeah.
They called it then.
Yeah. Where was it? Do you remember where it was?
Yes. You know where Turner's is?
I thought that was a livery stable.
No, that wasn't.
Behind hers? You mean?
No.
Oh, no, down on
Turner's.
Street. Yeah.
And you know, there's a building there. Who is it? No.
Sears across the street.
Sears.
Used to be.
Used to be the old convention hall.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
was. Well, all in that block in there. People, I've seen the wagons parked there and their horses tied to the wagon eating hay out of the wagon, you know,
Yeah.
all over that.
Yeah. What was exciting when you got to Springfield? What was the main thing? Do you remember anything in particular that when you were young that you used to be excited about?
No, if we got to go to the show, well, that was a big thing.
The big thing in your time was the picnics, wasn't it?
Well,
And
yeah.
when they had the horse-drawn,
Well, we didn't have to go to Springfield for that. We
they
had
had come
big,
to Brown Springs.
yeah,
A little carnival like?
uh-huh.
Yeah, Negro entertainers.
The first one I can remember, when I was real small, they had a picnic at Rogersville, and they had what they called Punch and Judy. It was these puppets,
Yeah.
you know. That was the first ones I ever saw. And they would talk, you know, somebody chose their voice and talked for them. And they had them up on a high, I don't know what it was really, I can't remember, I was too small. But now that took my attention.
Yeah.
The main entertainment, like at Clever, was your Chautauquas.
Oh, yeah. But
Now,
that,
they were talking about on today's show the other day, the history of the Chautauquas.
Yeah, that was quite a
Yeah.
20s, wasn't it?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
a funny incident about that. My husband had bought tickets, season tickets they called them. It lasted usually 5 or 6 days. And it is cheaper to buy a season ticket. So we bought our tickets, and the day before the thing was to start, we had a lot of bees, and he took a notion to rob the bees. And I said, no. I said, don't rob the bees. I said, they'll sting me. They wouldn't sting him. He could rob them, they'd crawl all over me. But if I went near them, they'd sting me. And he said, no. He said, I'll get everything ready, and you won't have to come out there. And I said, be sure that you do, because I'm not a coming. So he thought he had everything ready, but he had bought 2 or 3 stands that spring, and when they got ready to move them home, they had taken little shingle nails and drove them supers, you know, that sets on them, on top, through that down into the hive itself, so that they wouldn't spill off.
Yeah.
Well, he forgot about that. So they got out there, and we had about 19 hives rolled up on a big bench next to the yard fence. He hollered at me and says, bring me the screwdriver. No, I said, I'm not bringing you a screwdriver. I said, what's the matter? He said, well, there's a nail out here in this gun. He said, I forgot about it. Well, I said, I can't come. I said, I'll get stung and I can't go to the Chautauqua. Well, he said, you bring it. We had some tame huckleberry bushes back of these beehives. He said, you come and come back of them, the huckleberry bushes, and I'll hand you the smoker, and then you can hand me the screwdriver. Well, I did as I was told, but just as I started to take a hold of the smoker, an old bee made a beeline and struck me right between the eyes. Well, the next morning my eyes were both swelled shut. I was the awfulest looking thing. He had to laugh, you know, and he said, now you won't get to go to the Chautauqua. I said, oh, yes, I will. I said, I'll go if I'm so blind you have to leave me. But I think it started 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And by then, it had gone down a lot, but you could still see it swelling, you know. And the next morning, I got up and my eyes swelled shut again. But the swelling went down a little faster that time. And I went to the sure talker just the same. Well, the neighbors that knew about it, they just nearly died. Like they knew about me, telling him I'd go if he had to leave me.
Well, let's see. You were past. You bought store cloth, didn't you?
Huh?
Did your mother still weave any, or?
No, she wove rugs.
Yeah, but I mean, the spinning wheel was over with, wasn't it, by then?
Yes.
You could buy a store, and you didn't still make your own dyes or that type of thing.
No.
You could buy that in the stores
No,
then,
we
couldn't
could
you?
buy that. But Mother wove rugs,
Yeah.
and that was all. But she knitted. She could knit socks or gloves or anything she wanted to.
But what now? Well, of course, you still didn't have pharmacies to go to. You still had home remedies, didn't you?
No, we had drugstores.
Did you have drugstores?
We called them. And
But it's mostly Calmo and stuff like that.
they had the doctors used the drugstores too, you know. We had pretty good doctors.
It was
At one time,
not like it is.
we had 3 pretty good doctors there in Rogersville for years.
Yeah, of course, Rogersville was a pretty
Rogersville.
advanced little town.
And
wasn't
I
it?
say it was named after Dr. Rogers.
Yeah.
And
Well, his
you
nephew
remember,
lives over at Ozark now. I know him.
who?
There's a Rogers lives at
Oh,
Ozark.
yeah. And then you remember Peachy Rogers, don't you? She
Oh.
used to run for office over.
I don't remember.
She lived there at Elm Grove, close to Elm Grove. And she was a niece. She was Dr. Rogers' brother's girl. And there's a John Rogers, but they're all dead now.
Well, was there still any hostility between the ball knobbers and the anti-ball knobbers?
No.
Or that was all pretty
That
well
was
had
all
eased off, hadn't
uh-huh.
it? Yeah. What about the Civil War? Were there a lot of Civil War veterans still
Yeah, there was
living?
quite a lot.
But what did they ever talk about it? Or?
My grandfather was in that. Both grandfathers were.
Didn't great-grandpa Hall get killed by the bushwhackers?
Oh, that is your great-grandfather.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he was killed out here at Maryville. He and Mr. Hurst, they were killed by the bushwhackers out there. They were too old, you know, to go to war.
What were their
But-
sympathies, north or south?
Huh?
What were their sympathies, northern or southern?
They were Union.
Union, yeah.
Who was that guy, Galena, that Dad always thought his dad killed him? What was his name?
Bert Moore.
Was it his dad? His dad thought that?
Yeah, they thought killed him. I guess that's
Had
pretty
killed
cool.
his father, in other
Uh-huh.
words, yeah.
Yeah. But my father-in-law, my husband's father, was in the Army, and that was the cause of his rheumatism. They always thought he was shot through the knee,
Oh.
and that set it.
Was he in a regiment? Did he live here in Missouri when he? So he was probably in a Missouri regiment then, wasn't he? Yeah.
And now, Grandma Paul had 2 sisters. One was a Barnett at Hurley. You can't remember anything at Molly Barnett. Used to be rather prominent down there. She was postmistress for a long time. And Uncle Sam Estes down here lived by the cemetery. Now, that's Paul Estes, his great uncle. Well, his wife and this Barnett woman and my husband's mother were all 3 sisters. And they all 3, their husbands got killed in the war. And each one of them was left with a baby son.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I guess I think we're about out of tape here. Let's see. What is today? I might as well put a day. This is August 8th, 1974. Where did you first where'd you go to school? At Ozarks.
Uh-huh.
And then you graduated from high school and started teaching
I
when?
went to SMS the first year it was built.
Huh.
And just one building, that main building
Yeah.
was always there,
Administration building.
set right on that 40 acres.
Yeah.
And there's just a few shade trees. And the utility building at the corner, and that was all that was there.
How many hours did you take that first?
Let's see,
Because you went on and started teaching then, didn't you?
uh-huh. I went that first 2 terms, I believe, first. Then I went back, another year. And
Well, when did you start teaching?
well,
your
I
first?
could tell you something funny about that now. I was going to high school there at Ozark, and we had a superintendent by the name of Angwin. And he went home for lunch, and we all went home for lunch. Came back at noon, and he said, came up to me and he said, Mabel, he said, do you think you could teach school? And I said, yes, I think I could. And he said, well, he says there's 3 directors down here from the South End, and they want a school teacher. And he said they asked him if he had somebody in school he thought would make a good school teacher. And he said, I studied a minute, and I said, yes, I believe I have. And they said, well, you bring her down here at 4 o'clock when school's out, and we'll talk to her.
Was this Ozark?
Uh-huh. And we were to meet in front of the bank over there on the corner with the courthouse, And so I met with them, and they quizzed me around, and they had a young man the year before, but the kids run him out. And now me going in there 17 years old, take that place. And so they hired me, $25 a month. And I paid $8 a month for board. Well, that was some experience, but I never enjoyed anything anymore in my life. The people, they're hill people, but now they're good people.
What school was it?
Low Gap was a nickname. It was Oak Hill was the name of it.
South of Chadwick, was it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
10 miles from Chadwick. And I boarded with some folks by the name of Mills, right in that Low Gap, Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I know where it is.
It's a sunk place,
Yeah.
And I boarded there with a family by the name of Mills, and he was one of the directors. And they had a son, Ollie, they called him. He had quit school, and just worked around on the farm and there at home and other places too. And they had other children, but they were married and gone. But I taught there, and then the next year I taught over by Ozark, or south of Rogersville rather first, at Elm Grove. And then I taught at Parchcorn, they called it. Let's see, it had another name. Smyrna was the name of it.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And by Linden? Is that by Linden?
Yeah, and I had a family from Linden. They went to school to me. A fellow by the name of Marlin had a store at Linden. Well, I went over there 2 or 3 different nights through the term and stayed overnight with the kids, And then, let's see, they had a mill, I believe, there, and this little store. I believe that was all there was then. But now it's a pretty nice place,
Now, when you first started Low Gap, though, you had to walk.
Oh,
How far did you have to walk?
I had to walk nearly 3 miles.
I thought it was a half mile. 3 miles?
Well, now, when I stayed with this Mills, it was a mile.
Yeah.
But I didn't stay there too long. Now, the lady had ulcers on her ankles, and she'd sit up in the bed of the night and cry, with a sore, and kept me awake. Well, I had to get another place. And then these people, they were an elderly couple, and they had one daughter at home, and she went to school to me. But on the road, we'd gather up 3 or 4 here and 2 or 3 there along the road, and all go along together, And early in the morning, I never will forget. You could just breathe that fresh air off of those pines, you know. You could just feel it go down, clear your throat, you know. And I gained several pounds while I was down there. It was just healthy, you know. We had a little spring. We got water at the school.
Yeah.
And
How many? The age of the students was really. You taught all grades, didn't you?
yeah, and they were two of them older than I was. Yeah, great big old boys, you know. 17 and 18 and one 19.
Yeah.
And there was one, I don't know whether I'll tell that.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry about it.
About ball numbers.
Yeah.
The lynching of the at Ozarks.
Yeah.
You know.
Fine.
Well, one of those men was in the district and his boy went to school with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they hung his dad and I think a brother too.
Brother, there were two of them.
Yeah, that's right. And but that happened before I went there. You see.
Oh yeah, sure.
Uh-huh.
In fact,
But this family lived there. He was a nice fellow and respected in the community.
Yeah. Now here, so you can hear what.
Yeah.
So you. Now why don't you tell a story about your dad and his brother when where they slept and everything?
It was my husband and his brother. Well, it was a year or so after we were married, and there was an old man, a Dane. He came from Denmark, and he lived on the county line over there, about a mile from where we lived. And he was a great friend of Jim's dad, and he'd come and visit every once in a while, and he did carpenter work. He had built a house for Jim's brother, one of them, and several houses in the neighborhood. But he was a good friend, and he came to visit, you know, and he talked funny, you know, and had a brogue. Well, then this other old fellow was from down around Hurley. His name was Eaton. And so he'd get mad and he'd sull, you know, he wouldn't talk. And he was just sitting up in front of the fire. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. He was sitting there one night, and well, he did get mad at that time. But the boys, they prepared for him. They had a big rope bed put together with cords, you know, some way. Well, then they had just an ordinary bed over on the other side. Well, this old man was big and heavy, and he slept in the heavy bed, and the boys in the other one in the same room.
A cord bed. Did they have a mattress?
Or no, shucked or straw bed. You know, they didn't have mattresses then. Stuffed with shucks or straw, and so the boys made it up, and they changed the railings, you know, put them weak ones over here for the old man, and they put the good ones over there. And they were just good little fellows that night. They went up and went to bed early, you know. Well, when the old man come up, this other old fellow came with him. They was going to sleep in the big bed. Well, one of the boys raised up, and he says, "Mr. Peterson, show Mr. Uncle John," says, "show Uncle John how strong your bed is." Sure, wait a minute," he said. And he got back to the fireplace. Big flue went through there. Stood there, and he run and jumped in bed, and it broke, just doubled in and made.
Where's your granddaughter? I'll give you that. The foregoing interview with Mrs. Mable Hall took place at the home of her daughter, Mrs. Erma Pierce, on ZZ Highway between Wilson Creek Battlefield and Clever, Missouri, the evening of July 16, 1974. Now it's ready. It's ready now.
Well, I'll put on my glasses.
That's all right.
Now this is about the old man jumping in the bed.
Yeah.
There was this old gentleman from Denmark named Peterson, lived on the Stone Christian County line about 1 mile from the Hall farm. He was a carpenter and was a good friend of my father-in-law. Well, this one night, he came over to spend the night, and there was another elderly gentleman staying in the home and working for the family. When the family called Uncle John, Uncle John Eaton, my husband and his brother were two mischievous boys, and they had plotted to play a trick on the old fellow. The bed the two elderly gents were to sleep in was an old-fashioned card bed, very strong and made of heavy material. Well, the two boys changed the beds, putting their bed where the old man's bed stood. Now this upstairs at that time was all in one big room, and this big fireplace run up through the center, and the stairway ran up to this chimney. The old man had a habit of showing the boys how strong the bed was. And when he'd get ready to go to bed, he'd back off, by the chimney and make it run for his bed and jump right up in the middle of it. And show him how strong he was. He was a big, heavy man. Well, this time, the boys had changed the beds and put their bed, just an ordinary bed there, but big man like him, jumping in.
And the lighting wasn't too good at night, was it, up there?
No, they didn't have any electric lights, no. And I doubt they had any light on at all. I think just maybe the light from the moon or something was all the light that was up there at that time. The boys had gone to bed early and getting ready, They had everything all set for the old man. So when the two old fellas came upstairs, one of the boys said, "Mr. Peterson, show Uncle John how strong your bed is." So the old fella, he backed up about the middle of the room by the big flue that came up through from they had a double fireplace down below. He made a big run and jumped in the middle of the bed, which broke in two, and the footboard came up and mashed the old man's mouth. Well, the mother heard this commotion upstairs, and she thought it was the boys maybe fighting, and here she grabbed her switch and made for the stairs. And as she went up, she got a glimpse of this old man making a dash. He didn't want her to see him. He's in his shirt tail.
Yeah.
He didn't want her to see him, so he was running around the chimney. Well, she thought it was the boys, and she took in after him with that switch. And every time he'd come around the corner, she'd give them a warp. He took 2 or 3 of them, and finally he said, "Oh, don't, y'all do have them, Mommy. It is to be me," he said. Well, she was so embarrassed. Here she went downstairs, in a run, and to her dying day, when anybody'd go tell that story, she'd get up and leave the room. She wouldn't sit and listen.
That's a key story. Now that was your husband when he was old?
He and Leaford. Leaford was the main one. He was a corker. Now, are you ready for it?
Yeah, sure. It's still going. That's fine.
Well, this is old-time entertainment, in that day and time.
Yeah.
There wasn't
Because there wasn't any radio or television.
shows or anything.
Yeah.
And this happened more than 100 years ago. My father-in-law was a helpless invalid for 21 years, crippled with arthritis. But he was a very cheerful person and could tell many funny stories. Among them was this one. He and his brother, Brother Mitt, he called him.
Who was this man?
My father-in-law, his name was Jim Hall. My
Hall.
husband.
And where did he live at this time?
On that farm, right where we are now.
Where is that now? In Christian County?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, below.
Clever.
Below Clever. Okay.
Uh-huh. No, not Christian County, Stone County.
Stone County.
Mm. Well, these two boys and some neighbor boys, they'd had a kind of a disagreement of some kind. They wasn't getting along too good. And the neighborhood youngster decided to have a play party. And on account of this disagreement, why, these two Hall boys wasn't invited to the party. And they decided to do something about it. So they went to the pasture and caught a big steer. And they took a broke that was broke to lead. They took an old sheet and tore it in two. And they placed themselves in the road now in front of this house, don't you see? And then they had rail fences and sprouts grown up in them, you know,
Yeah.
and rock piles, and the fence was rough, you know.
Yeah.
Well, my father-in-law got at the head of the road, you know, when the party got ready to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
And Brother Mitt got on the lower end of the road. Well, my father-in-law got this steer and held it up there, you know, and he tied this sheet on his tail. Well, when the party broke up, here the crowd come, he said they're laughing and they're talking, you know, all armed up. And they waited till they got in the road good, you know, and just talking and laughing. And said he turned the steer loose and gave him a big warp, you know.
Yeah.
Well, old steer raised his tail, you know, and that sheet scared him. There he went down the road, just a bellowing and a bawling, you know, and having fits. The young people just scattered. They run to the fences, you know, and climbed up on the fence, and some of them would pull a rail off and fall back. And they're just screaming and they're crying, you know. Well, the steer went on down the road, you know, and they all got back in the road and all armed up again, talking and laughing. And Brother Mitt was down at the other end, and he turned the old steer back.
Sent it back up the road again.
Here he comes with that big white flag waving in there. And the old steer was scared,
Yeah,
you know, himself. That made it all the funnier. And
Oh,
they said,
God.
then the next time that the young people had a party, he and Brother Mitt were the first ones invited.
So it wouldn't scare him again. Oh, God. Well, you know, they used to do a lot of things. But,
Oh.
well, and in a way it was better because, now, just tell a little bit about when you were, where you were born, who your folks were.
I was born in Greene County, near Rogersville, March the 1st, 1890, and lived there for 7 years till I was 7 years old. And then we moved to a little place called Henderson in Webster County, and it was just a small town, had 2 or 3 little stores, but it had then we thought a big mill, water mill. There was a branch run through the town. And there was a big schoolhouse, had 2 stories up on the hill, and then that was same as a college. The normal wasn't even then. And this...
You remember the name? It was an academy? Was that? What was the name?
Henderson Academy was what it was called. But I went to school there when I was in the 3rd grade, I believe I started over there. And then my dad bought a farm where my brother still lives, an old home place in Webster County near Rogersville. And then I went to what they called White Oak, a little rural school. And then after I got through with the 8th grade, finished the 8th grade, a girl, neighbor girl and I went to this Henderson Academy, walked and went down there, and girls from down in Stone County and all around, and boys, men, young men, were going to school there. And it was...
you boarded there?
Yeah, they boarded there and went to school. And at one time, there was a young fellow from there that was in the Army, and they got the smallpox in the Army, and he comes home, and we had some kind of an entertainment one night, and the house was filled, and he came and gave nearly all the young people, you know, the smallpox. It was a terrible epidemic. And one girl that lived on the hill back at the Methodist church there, boarded there. I mean, a 19-year-old girl, she took pneumonia and died with the smallpox. And they blamed this boy an awful lot for her death, you know. Well, then, after I went to school there, to this academy, a couple of years, then I went to college. And no, I went to Ozarks first, to high school. And we had a minister. He was a teacher first. His name was Creed Day. He taught school there at this little White Oak school a few years before I went to Ozarks. Well, then he got to be a Methodist minister. And he insisted on me going to high school at Ozarks. Rogersville didn't have a full, just had the 10th and 11th grade. So he wanted me to go and live with them and stay with his wife while he was away on these protracted meetings and things like that, you know. So I stayed 2 years with them and went to school over there. And then that's when I got my school that I told you.
Well, you came up there, you were telling. Yeah. Well, where did your folks come from? Had they been raised
my
there?
dad came from Tennessee. His mother had, we never did know, I never thought about asking, but I think it was asthma. Well, they moved to Illinois then in hopes of her health being better, you know. And it wasn't, it was cold up there. So they came to Missouri, and they've moved up here to Springfield on what is Lone Pine now. And they lived there for several years in cheap dollars.
Let me just